This Swamiji came from where and how he's become?
Yogi RamSuratKumar, originally he belonged to Balia district. That's the border between Bihar and UP. It belongs to UP only. So he was born in a very small village, Nadra, on the bank of the river Ganga. And right from childhood, Bhagwan was very different. He would not go into the fields to work like other children, nor would he graze the cattle. He used to be separate, and most of the time he would spend with the sadhus who would gather on the banks of the Ganges. Sometimes this little boy of 4 years would spend even the nights with them, listening to their tales and bhajans. And there was one trait about him: he could not see any sadhu going hungry. So his mother would have piled up a set of chapatis, and this fellow would go there, run there. When nobody is around, he'll take the whole lot, collect them in his shirt, and then run back to the Ganges and distribute it to the sadhus. So today in the ashram, there is a very special bhojan called the sadhu bhojan, and the sadhus are being fed with great respect. And of course, there was one Kapadiya Baba, a realized soul. He used to come to the village. All the other children would be frightened by his appearance and they would run away. But little RamSuratKumar was fascinated by him, and this boy would go sit near him and seek his blessings. So Kapadiya Baba was the earliest mentor of Yogi RamSuratKumar, and it was he who trained him from childhood, because he had a natural inclination towards God, but Kapadiya Baba contributed much in shaping him. So at the age of 13, there was one pivotal incident that took place which changed his whole life. This little boy used to help his mother with the house chore. The mother had asked him to go fetch some water. It was dusk, evening, and when this little fellow walked with a bucket and the rope, he saw one bird perched on the dike of the well, a little raised platform, it was there. Very playfully, in playful innocence, this boy threw his rope to shoo it away. He never imagined it would strike the bird and the bird would fall dead. It happened, and it was a great shock to him. He could not take it. He tried to revive the bird, but then in vain. So finally the whole night he spent on the banks of the river, cried and cried and cried. But then this incident made him contemplate. What was it? I did not mean to kill it, but it happened. Why? And then, what is it that was there in the body when it was alive, which is missing now in the dead body? So you see, all these fundamental issues of life, it threw him into confusion, and he was trying to find, because he was already very devoted to Lord Shiva, he would sit there and contemplate. He would go into contemplative meditation. But then he came back to Kapadiya Baba. Kapadiya Baba asked him to read Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Tulsi Ramayana, and other scriptures. At the age of 16, Kapadiya Baba said, you have to go to Kashi. Kashi was just 4 hours away from Nadra.
From there.
Only 4 hours. So at the age of 16, he went over to Kashi, and even as he entered the sanctum sanctorum of Kashi, he felt a huge effulgence there. He almost swooned. And And then he also found that the effulgence was coming from inside of him. It was a very strange experience for the boy. And then he loved Lord Buddha. He had already read some books on Buddha. So he heard that Sarnath was only 13 kilometers from there. He walked all the way and stood before the stupi there, the huge one. And again something happened to him. Some experience took over. You see, that stupi, that was the place where Lord Buddha gave his first sermon. After the Jnanodaya, he had some 5 disciples following him, and this is where he gave his first teachings. And the vibrations there and the memory of Lord Buddha threw him into a trance. So he had such experiences off and on. And then he returned and reported to Kapadia Baba. He was very, very happy. He even sent him to Gaya, Buddha Gaya. Like every other boy, he completed his schooling. He did his BA and BT also. In BA, I think Allahabad University, and BT in Patna University. And for the graduation, the degrees that he held, he could have easily become a collector or something in those days. But he did not want to work under the British Raj.
Oh, in that time?
Yes. So he said, he was born in the year 1918.
18, okay.
December 1st, 1918. So you can imagine 20 years after, it was very much British Raj.
Oh.
He didn't want to do any work in the government. So he took up a teacher's job in a school. And by the time he was married, because in the north, they would marry you very young. He didn't want to marry, but they forced him at home.
Oh.
And he was actually cheated into marrying. Because they conspired, the people, because they knew that he was trying to escape.
Oh.
And they had arranged for a marriage, some girl, without revealing it to him.
To Swami.
So the marriage was going on, and then he had come there very casually, and then he found his grandmother, and grandmother said, "This is your marriage day." Then he said, "My God, what is it? What a shock to me! How could you arrange all these things?" But then he didn't say anything, because it was in progress. So he said, okay, I'll go have my bath in the Ganges and come. And he ran away. So finally, because they had to face, this humiliation, so the bride's people began to insist. Then his father, he had an younger brother.
Okay.
So he dragged his younger brother and put him there. So finally the girl married him, the younger brother instead.
Okay.
So the next time again, after some time, they began to press hard that you should get married. So he put conditions, thinking that those conditions would not be met with by anybody. So they would leave him free. He said, I have to see the girl, I have to talk to her. Only if I like her, I would marry her. They agreed to all that. There was one lady, one house, rich people, and the daughter was already up to 5th standard, which was high education in those days. So the father agreed, because this boy is very handsome, well educated, and already working as a teacher. So very promising youth. So they agreed to all the conditions, and finally he could not escape. So he married her. Of course, after that he was a very good husband and a good father. All that, but there was an irresistible call. One day when he was walking somewhere, he heard a voice, like a Sariri, He heard a voice saying, this is Vivekananda calling you. What you are now doing is not your work. This is not your work. He just looked around and found no one there, and he thought he had probably imagined it, and he walked ahead. But then another time again this happened. This is Swami Vivekananda calling you. Whatever work you are doing now is not your job. Now he knew for sure it was Swami Vivekananda, and then he took long leave from school, and he also took the blessings of Kapadiya Baba. And then he came to the south. Kapadiya Baba said, "I'm not your guru. I'm a mentor, all right, but I'm not your guru. There are 3 spiritual giants there in the south. You go try there." He sent him off.
So he suggested.
Kapadiya Baba sent him to the south.
Oh, okay.
By then, he had read a book of Sri Aurobindo, Lights on Yoga, and it impressed him so much, so he wanted to go to Sri Aurobindo. So Swami, even there was one experience. It was a crowd, trying to board the train at a time. He was a little dignified in those days. He had a ticket and some money in the pocket, all that. So when he moved with the crowd, and then somehow got inside, when the ticket collector came, he put his hand into his pocket, only to find that it was torn and there was nothing left. Somebody had pickpocketed. And then somehow the other people around him, they somehow managed to give him some money. So up to a certain station, I think near Anagaputtur, they gave him some money. He could travel. But you see, had we been in his place, we would have thought it was a very bad woman. He was starting his spiritual life in search of a guru. And suddenly this money was pickpocketed, and he lost his dignity in front of people. And had I been in his place, I would have thought it was a bad woman. I might have gone back. But you see, Swami's mind, okay, God does not want me to possess any money. He doesn't want me to have an identity like this, and no money either. So after that he began to travel penniless. This is the attitude, mindset of a Mahatma. It shows even in the beginning, in different ways. And even in the Gaon, he used to help people very generously. If there was a sick man, he would go and attend to him. He would go into the field and then start working. And he would do the house chore for his mother, all that. Now, he travelled ahead, and whatever little distance was left, he walked and reached Sri Aurobindo's ashram. And when he entered Sri Aurobindo's ashram, he found such beautiful peace. Years later, when he described it to me, he said, "Devaki, this beggar found such peace there and knew instantly that peace was Sri Aurobindo." This is how he described Sri Aurobindo. He stayed there for some time, and then he came to know about Sri Raman Bhagwan. So he came over to Tiruvannamalai, and he began to sit before Raman Bhagwan. That was 1948. 48. And then he sat there before Raman Bhagwan for 2 months.
2 months.
When he sat there, door after door after door, inner doors opened, and he could go into higher reaches of consciousness. But there was no final fulfillment. He came back home, and he continued his job, and then he ran away from the work, and then he went into the Himalayas. In 1950, he came to hear that both Ramana Bhagwan and Sri Aurobindo had attained Mahasamadhi. That's when he came to know about Papa Ramdas. That is, when he had visited Ramanashram, he came to know about one Papa Ramdas of Kanjanghat, Kerala. So now he felt that only Papa Ramdas was left, and he should not miss his chance. So he went straight away to Papa Ramdas. And Papa Ramdas was waiting for him. And what was more, he treated him like his own father. And he narrated some of the incidents that happened in RamSuratKumar's life, which convinced him that Papa Ramdas was his guru. So he began to stay on in the ashram, and Papa Ramdas treated him very well. And after 2 weeks, he initiated him into Ramna. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And then gave only one instruction: chant this mantra all the 24 hours of the day. Much later, when Bhagavan described all this to me, he said, Papa Ramdas not only gave Rama Nama, he also put a Rama Bhana into me. The instruction that chant this mantra 24 hours. It entered this beggar like Rama Bhana, and after that this beggar went into some place nearby, a small hill and something like a cave, and then this beggar started to chant. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Not that this beggar was able to do it 24 hours, but this beggar was trying and trying and trying. And then he said to me, Devaki, this trying is tapas. So beautifully he said, this is meant for all sadhaks. We can only try. We have to try and struggle, and this is tapas. So after that he chanted the mantra only for 6 days and 6 nights. On the 7th day, he said that Papa Ramdas killed him. Once for all. Meaning, his ego was killed. Once the ego is gone, what remains is only the divine. So Bhagavan said, after this, Father alone exists. There is nothing else, no one else. So you see, it's a transformation from an individual soul, from individuality, to being a cosmic being. So from individual being to cosmic being. And in the cosmic being there is no trace of ego. And the divine starts to work directly. So he became a fine instrument in the hands of God. Then after that, Papa Ramdas said, you have to go out into the world and serve there. Then Papa Ramdas asked him, where would you go? And again, you see, a divine spontaneity took over. Once there is no ego, there is no plan. There is no thinking and talking. Everything becomes spontaneous. So when Papa Ramdas asked him, where would you go? Pat came the reply, Thiruvannamalai. It came of its own accord. And after that, it took 7 years for him to reach Thiruvannamalai. He started to wander. He said, after this experience, there was nobody, no ego at all. This beggar was in the grip of madness. And my divine Father guided this beggar everywhere. He was guided by the will of God completely. So 7 years he wandered all over India. And finally in 1959 he landed in Thiruvannamalai.
Oh, 59.
He had his enlightenment in 1952.
Okay.
7 years of wandering. 7 years of wandering all over India taught him many things about people, their weaknesses, their strengths, and how to be with them. When he came back, he was unable to be with the dense vibrations of people. Before enlightenment, if anybody smoked in the same room, he would vomit. He would run away from the place. But after enlightenment, he could do his father's work only by smoking. And he became very unpredictable, like these beings are always. You would never know what he would say next, what he would do next. And finally, he began to live in the streets of Tirunelveli.
On the streets.
He would not bathe, and he would beg for food only if he wanted. Otherwise, he would go starving. Not that he got food also. Sometimes 3 days, 4 days, he wouldn't get anything, even a cup of tea. But he would say, even that was only Father's grace. If he got something to eat, it was Father's grace. If he didn't get anything at all to eat for 3 days, it was still Father's grace. And he would walk the streets of Tiruvannamalai singing and dancing. Shri Rama, Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama. And there would be some places where he would come and stay for a little while, but nobody knew where he was staying. 17 years he stayed in the streets of Tiruvannamalai as a beggar.
Up to 1959 to
17 years, 76.
76.
14 years in the street, 3 years, the last 3 years, under a tree, Punnai tree, near the railway station. And that is when people began to recognize him for what he was. That he was no common beggar, but he was a divine beggar. And if people came to him with any complaints, with any needs, they were getting fulfilled. If an unemployed youth came to have darshan, he got employment. If an unmarried woman came, she got married. And the issueless couple came, they had issues. So they found out that he was like a kalpataru, a wish fulfilling tree. In the meantime, he had some difficulties also because he was a North Indian and he had not bathed in the wandering days. And he was wearing only, what do they call that? Rags, torn and dirty clothes. So you can imagine the wild look he had. There was no hair and no oil in the hair. It was all ruffled and dirty and rags as clothes. But his eyes, they were fire. And they shone with the fire of supreme knowledge. And then after 17 years, some of those devotees, gathered. They could not sit in the pouring rain or burning sun like him. So they began to pester him. They bought a house near Arunachaleshwara temple and then they pestered him to come and stay there. In the meantime, what happened, because he was a North Indian, and there was Hindi agitation in Tamil Nadu. So people began to target him. They would throw stones at him. They would break bottles in the path he walked so that they would poke his soul and then bleed. So they tortured him in many ways. He put up with all that quietly. Once, I think, as he was walking, suddenly 4 rowdies gathered around him. He had no possessions at all except a coconut shell and a stick in hand. They snatched everything and threw it out. And then they started to beat him up. One man would beat him up and then push him to the other. And all the 4 gave him such blows, he began to bleed. But he would not resist it. And there were some 20 people gathered and they were watching the whole thing. Nobody came forward to help him. And there were some people in the crowd who had come to him for blessings already. And still, for their own reasons, probably fear being the main reason, they would not come forward. And he was left there. In the meantime, some 2 people who helped him now and then, they came to know about this. And then they came running. When the 4 rowdies saw the 2 coming, running, they ran away. Now the 2 people said, Swami, what is this? What have they done to you? We would like to give them nicely so that they would never touch you again. Then Bhagavan said, no, they have done their work for which they have come. we will do Father's work. This is for all again. That in the world there would be violence, there would be evil and wicked people. They have been born for this kind of work and they are doing it. Even that happens only by God's will. Those of us who have come for remembering God and practicing sadhana to attain Him, we have to do this work, unmindful of what the world does to us. This is what I learned. And Bhagavan also said, some 20 people were there standing and watching. Nobody came forward, and then he said, this is the world. Don't trust anybody. So you see, the next 17 years, he was there living in the house. But he was like the wind, you cannot hold the wind in hand. So he was most of the time in the streets only. In the Arunachaleshwara Mandir, there is Sannadhi Street. And there is a chariot mandap there, at the end of the Sannadhi Street. This house is opposite to it. You can also go and take pictures there. It's open from 9 to 12.
Morning?
9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, noon. And then evening 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
So, the next 17 years he did his spiritual ministry only from that house. Mostly he would not be with the crowds because his father's work was heavy. He needed to be alone for that. So if he saw some 4 or 5 people coming together, he would run away from the place. But slowly, his mission changed. And then from 1986-87, he began to come and sit in the small veranda for the sake of the devotees. Sannadhi Street house. For the sake of the devotees, he began to come and sit there. And then there was a steady stream of visitors. And then more crowd and more crowd and more crowd. Finally, he felt the need for an ashram for the sake of the devotees. So when some of the devotees persisted that we have an ashram, he said yes, but this beggar would not live there. He would come and give darshan, but this is meant for only the devotees. By the time I had come to Bhagavan in 86 December, and then for 7 years I was coming and going. And then at the end of 7 years he fell sick, and there was nobody to attend on him. And by then 3 other people joined me, 4 of us. We are called Sudama sisters. So 4 of us joined and we had built a house here. So I begged Swami to come to Sudama house and stay, because the Sannadhi Street house was very dark, no light, no air. So he shifted to Sudama for a little while, but the doctor who attended on him said, you don't go back there because you need light and air and the body is aging. You need somebody to attend also on you. So that is how he came to stay there. And those 7 years he built this ashram. He would be coming and going, not staying here. But this 7 years the ashram came up. His main teachings, he said the goal of any human life, whether you were in Alaska or Australia or Argentina, any place, the goal of human life is only God. Only God. To attain God, to remember God, a certain body is given to you, a certain environment, only to remember God. We cannot attain God. Attaining God is not in our hands. But remembering God is. So he said, you have to keep remembering God. Remembering the name of God is remembering God. And remembering God is living in God. So this is what he would always tell people.
So In that case, you give the paper, the pilgrims came here,
So you see, now his name, Yogi RamSuratKumar, has become a mantra for all of us.
Okay,
Mantra by which we live.
okay,
People who have been at the bottom, they have come up so well in life by the help of this mantra. Whenever we are in trouble, if we call out to Yogi RamSuratKumar, we get help immediately, we get guidance and protection.
oh,
This has been the experience of thousands of devotees.
oh,
This mantra, Yogi RamSuratKumar, is packed with his power and grace.
oh. So that is the mantra.
Yes.
Yogi-
So this mantra here in the ashram, it goes on from morning 6 to evening 6.
Oh,
Every day.
every day.
Lagatar.
It's continuous.
Lagatar it goes on.
Okay,
Every day. 12 hours.
12 hours.
And then again 1 hour in the evening from till about 7:50.
Okay.
So nearly 13 hours
Oh,
the Nama is going on.
Nama.
And if all you saw all those people coming in distress, then we tell them, just remember Bhagwan's Nama, keep on chanting and writing and chanting and writing, take up a particular prayer and you keep chanting the name.
Okay.
For that prayer, the prayer will get fulfilled. At some Nama, you can be sure that the prayer will be granted. This has been the experience of many, many devotees. So I am telling you people also, if you come into any situation where you need immediate help and protection, just call out Yogi RamSuratKumar, Yogi RamSuratKumar, and see what happens. I don't want to tell you. You have to come back and tell me the stories.
Okay.
So this mantra, Yogi RamSuratKumar, is for all. You don't have to be particularly devoted to him, nor is any condition that you should be able to concentrate. There may not be any concentration, there may not be any devotion. Even if you don't have faith, it doesn't matter. Just keep calling his name.
Oh,
The name works, helps. Yogiji would say, if anybody should chant this mantra, Yogi RamSuratKumar, they not only help themselves, but also the people around, and the world, and this beggar's father's work also. So this is the main teaching. And then Bhagavan would say that offer your every action to God.
okay. So, and one more thing, this ashram, any founder or some, or how is come?
Only the devotees. The devotees, at that time in 93,
Okay,
this land was bought.
okay.
And then
Who bought this land?
that at that time there was one Sri Janardhan of Bangalore, and he was the main one. He was the only trustee of the trust at that time when the land was bought.
Okay,
After that there was some shift,
okay.
and then we had a trust board after that.
Oh, okay.
And the Justice Arunachalam, he became the spiritual successor of Yogi RamSuratKumar Bhagwan. And for the past 20 years, it was he who was running the ashram. He ran this ashram very well, to the best of his ability.
So ashramam perform what kind of help
Activities.
and activities?
We have sadhu bhojan,
Okay,
and then we are feeding all the people who come for Bhagwan's darshan. Morning breakfast is also free, afternoon lunch is also free. So the two main things here is the Nama chanting and Annadana.
okay. So these are our
And we also have a medical camp every month.
okay,
And Dr. Ramanathan, brother of Justice Arunachalam,
okay,
he is heading the whole team.
okay,
And every second Saturday they all come, the team will come. And then outside the gate,
okay.
about 1,000 people benefit
Oh.
in and around Tiruvannamalai.
Every month.
Every month, second Saturday, those people would come.
Okay.
Second Sunday,
Okay.
morning 9 o'clock. By then people would have gathered here, nearly 800, 900,000 people.
Okay.
And medicine also distributed freely.
Okay. So medical camp means like all kind of diseases and what? Yeah. So all kind
But
of.
they would not do any operation here. They would refer to some doctors.
Some
doctors in Chennai.
Okay.
Yes.
So that one also it's a totally free or some.
Free camp.
Free camp.
Free medical camp.
Okay. So if.
Now this time they are completing 250th.
Okay. Okay. 200.
50th medical camp.
Oh. Okay.
You see, he never taught me anything straight.
Okay.
Only through a Leela demonstration,
Okay.
he would give us a teaching lesson. For example, we used to get a lot of letters when Bhagavan was in Sudama, and I used to read it out to him. So one day, when I was reading those letters, I was struck with wonder. They say God is Karuna Sagar, is an ocean of grace. Then why should people suffer like this? Such cruelties, such pointless suffering. Why should it happen? So this was going on and on and on. And finally I burst out with this question. He was smoking and doing his father's work. So as soon as I asked him, he looked at me and then he said very casually, it was rainy season, so we had put up a gunny bag as foot rest.
Oh, okay.
He said, Devaki, just go there, there's the gunny bag, something is written there, can you read out? I suddenly got disconnected from the question, but I had to obey, so I went straight there. It was written in Tamil, this bag contains number 1 strong rice, cleansed of stones, bronze and broken rice. So I read it out in Tamil. And then he looked at me and smiled and said, Devaki, that is the answer to your question. And I was thinking, my God, what a question I asked. And all that he did was ask me to read. And that was in Tamil. His language was Hindi and English. And he says, this is that. So the thing is, he would never say anything. And by his grace, it flashed. Every suffering that we get in life is only to cleanse us of all the unwanted things, so that we get rooted in God. If we don't get suffering, we will not turn to God.
So
in suffering, you are cut off from all the securities, You think that people are a security, you think that money is a security, and you think that your power is a security, your job is a security. God will choose a certain situation where everything is cut off from you and you will be reduced to utter helplessness. And then you will begin to think that God is my only security, God is my only strength. This is how God teaches you lessons. So I understood that all the sufferings that people go through, they are not only the effect of their past karmas, God is so gracious, He puts a blessing also in that. And because of this blessing, every suffering becomes a teaching lesson. And you begin to understand, and so many preconceived ideas, unwanted ideas will drop off, and you begin to gain strength in God. See, for example, if people go on the road, they're about to meet with an accident, a head-on collision, and in minutes you will be pulp under the wheel of a heavy vehicle. If you just call out, Yogi RamSuratKumar, Yogi RamSuratKumar, then magic happens. In a fraction of a second, how the situation would change, who is in control, we wouldn't know, but somehow whatever is meant to happen to you will happen to the vehicle. The vehicle may go to pieces, but then you are saved. This has been a repeated experience of many, many devotees till today. And when we are sick, bedridden, and probably expecting death, if we keep on calling out, then the cure comes. And as I said before, if you are unemployed and you don't get success anywhere in the interviews, if you can chant the mantra Yogi RamSuratKumar 3 days ceaselessly, you can be very sure that you will get the job. And similarly, a girl, marriage is getting delayed and they are not able to find a proper bridegroom. If she keeps on writing and chanting and writing and chanting Yogi RamSuratKumar, praying all the time that she must get happily married, it would come to pass. And so is the case with the couple. 5 years, 6 years, sometimes 16 years also they come here. Then all that we do is give them notebooks to write Bhagwan's Nama, Yogi RamSuratKumar, Yogi RamSuratKumar, and say don't add any other prayers. Just keep chanting and writing. And at some Nama you will conceive. And it happens. Even at the age of 42 people conceive. It's all glory of his name. He would say Nama and Nami are one and the same. They are not different. So the minute you call out the name, Nami is present there. Because a word and its meaning are inseparable. When I say the sun, the sunlight and the heat, right?
Yeah.
They are not different. So he said, when you say Rama, the meaning is Rama's presence. When you call out to Shiva, Arunachala Shiva is instantly present. When you call out to Yogi RamSuratKumar, he would say, my Supreme Father is instantly present. He would never say, I am present. He would never say, I. Always this beggar, this beggar. He would refer to himself as this beggar, but we call him Bhagwan. He attained his Mahasamadhi in 2001.
Okay. 2001?
Okay. He had cancer, like many people, like Ramana had cancer, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He also had cancer. And finally in 2001, he attained Mahasamadhi. But I was with him and I cried to him and I begged him. I said, how could you leave thousands of people drowning in sorrow? He said, no, only this beggar's body is dropping. This beggar can work much better without this body. And we experienced that in his name. He is fully present in his name. And anybody who calls out, don't have to bother about devotion or faith or concentration. You are in trouble, just call out and see what happens. He belongs to the whole world and the whole world belongs to him. Jai Yogi RamSuratKumar.
Yogi RamSuratKumar, Yogi RamSuratKumar.